Hello, my friends. Hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I have returned to talk about the Library of America and some books published by the Library of America. So, the Library of America publishes fantastic books that I dearly love. I have quite a few Library of America volumes in my library, and I will I will tell you a little bit about the Library of America. It has a mission, the Library of America does. I will read it off the back of this Library of America volume. This one is John O'Hara, his stories. Fantastic volume. This is a wonderful book to have. Anyway, the Library of America, a nonprofit publisher, is dedicated to preserving America's best and most significant writing in handsome, enduring volumes featuring authoritative texts. That is the mission of the Library of America. And that's written right down there in the back of all the Library of America books. Or is it? Now, the first book I ever bought from the Library of America, before I even really knew what the Library of America was, I bought this book. This is Chandler, Raymond Chandler, Stories and Early Novels. This has all the stories and novels up to The High Window. And then, of course, I got the next volume, which has the rest of his stories, plus Double Indemnity, which is a screenplay and selected essays and letters. So I got these two volumes of the Library of America because I was really interested in Raymond Chandler, and I had gotten a couple of paperbacks from Raymond Chandler. I remember I had The Big Sleep, which is the first one I read, which is his first Philip Marlowe novel, and Farewell, My Lovely. I found a paperback of that too. Both beat up paperbacks, I remember that. But then I saw this, and even though it was expensive, particularly at the time because I was in my early 20s, even though it was expensive, I bought it. And I've had it ever since. So one thing about the Library of America is that their books hold up. So this is over 20 years old, this particular volume. And it looks as good as ever. And it reads as good as ever. I mean, they're just so well constructed. Such beautiful, compact volumes that pack a lot in the volumes. Like this one is 1,100 pages. This is Raymond Chandler, who began his career in the pulp magazine Black Mask. The reason I bring that up is because since I've been buying books by the Library of America, and I've been kind of following that publisher over the years, I have noticed, and Library of America is not alone in this, I have noticed, judging by their choices over time, a certain amount of literary snobbery might be too much. That might be too much to say, but a certain amount of that kind of thing as far as what they would be willing to publish in their volumes. Crime fiction, for some reason, has been okay since the beginning, basically. This is volume number 79 of the Library of America. But early on, Library of America was publishing crime fiction. Raymond Chandler, Dashiell Hammett. They had a couple volumes of anthology volumes that had different crime novels from the 30s and the 40s. So they were publishing crime stuff, pretty early on. But you wouldn't find any science fiction in the Library of America. And with the exception of Edgar Allan Poe, who simply cannot be ignored for obvious reasons, for the longest time, they didn't have any horror in the Library of America either. These were the types of genre books, the kind of fiction that Library of America didn't seem to really want to touch, And I bring up this little blurb because there's one difference. So this is an older volume. It's over 20 years old. In this one, it reads that this is dedicated to preserving the works of America's greatest writers in handsome, enduring volumes featuring authoritative texts. Now, this is a more recent volume. This is volume 282. And it has gone from preserving America's best to preserving America's best and most significant writing. Most significant was an addition that they made. Grudgingly, at some point, the Library of America decided, I think, that there were certain writers and certain kinds of books that they just couldn't ignore. I'm not privy to their decision-making process and why they decided to publish certain things, but one of the groundbreaking books that they did publish was a volume of H.P. Lovecraft, a volume called H.P. Lovecraft Tales, which has H.P. Lovecraft's best stories in it. It's a great volume, actually. I have it in the other room, packed up at the moment, but wonderful volume of Lovecraft. Edited by Peter Straub. And it's interesting that they finally decided to do that. Penguin published a 3-volume set of H.P. Lovecraft, and after the first 2 volumes of the Penguin Lovecraft came out, I think Library of America felt it's time to publish Lovecraft. This was a writer that certainly could no longer be ignored, even though you get the feeling that there were certain people in Library of America, perhaps, who did not want to publish Lovecraft. Certainly when Lovecraft was published, there were certain Library of America readers who were just writing in and saying, you know, how could you publish this pulpy crap? Ugh, how could you publish Lovecraft? He wrote in weird tales, for God's sakes. But the thing is, you can't ignore H.P. Lovecraft. No matter what you think of Lovecraft, no matter what you think of his writing, it is certainly some of the most significant writing in the history of American writing. I mean, he is one of the most influential writers of all time. He simply changed the entire genre of horror and science fiction. And particularly in today's culture, Lovecraft is all over the place. His influence is huge. So he is not a writer that can be ignored, whether you like him or not. He is certainly one of the most significant writers that America has produced. So you have to publish Lovecraft. And I think that sort of freed up the Library of America a little bit. It loosened them up a little bit so that they started to publish some other things that were interesting. And finally, we started to get more science fiction in the Library of America. Something you got very little of. And now we've got Ursula K. Le Guin in the Library of America. We've got Ray Bradbury. We've got Philip K. Dick. And there will probably be more writers like that to come. There are still writers that have been ignored by the Library of America. Of course, I'm going to say Robert E. Howard should be in the Library of America. I did a whole video talking about how he should be in the Library of America. But so should Clark Ashton Smith, a really important and unique writer who doesn't have the fame that a Lovecraft or a Robert E. Howard has, but a great, tremendously imaginative writer and a very important poet as well. But he's not in the Library of America. I'm hoping that he will make it in someday. I suspect he has a better chance, actually, than Robert E. Howard, just because of that, because of the type of things that Robert E. Howard wrote. And you could see that kind of thing in the Library of America's refusal to publish Edgar Rice Burroughs as just a regular Library of America volume or two. They did publish Tarzan as an individual book that was like a special publication, and Princess of Mars as a special publication, but they weren't part of the series, and they made that very clear. They still have that, you know, we're not sure about that. But they have loosened up a bit, and I hope they loosen up a bit more in the future. And they loosened up enough to publish this and to publish this. So these are These are anthologies of science fiction novels. This set is from the 1950s, and this set is from the 1960s. And they're really interesting. The choices that they made are really interesting, and the choices that they made for the novels that are in this set. The boxed sets are really, really nice, too. They have the beautiful artwork from the 1950s and then from the 1960s that you could find on paperback covers back in the day. And they're reproduced beautifully on these books. So this is the first volume. This is American Science Fiction, 4 classic novels from 1953 through 1956. The editor of this series of books is Gary K. Wolfe. Look at that wonderful cover. And so they had a lot of choices about what they could have picked for this series of books. And there are some obvious writers that seem to be left out, but that could be because they had already had plans at this point to publish these other writers, like Ursula K. Le Guin. I think that they were planning for a while to put out her work in Library of America. So she is not included in any of these volumes, I don't believe. No, she's not in any of these, and I think that's why. And I think the same goes for Ray Bradbury. I think they knew Ray Bradbury was such an important writer that they had to get him in the Library of America. I mean, how do you not put Ray Bradbury in if you can? So this is just a selection of novels from the 1950s. The first box set is with these. So we've got The Space Merchants by Frederick Fowle and C.M. Kornbluth. The Space Merchants is the first novel in this set, which was a good novel. It's a good, solid science fiction novel. I'm not surprised that's in here. And I'm not surprised that More Than Human by Theodore Sturgeon is in here. It would seem odd if that wasn't in here, actually, because it was such a groundbreaking work of science fiction. Even if it was a little wobbly when it comes to the theory of evolution, it was still an important book. Then we've got Leigh Brackett's The Long Tomorrow, which was a wonderful novel by Leigh Brackett. I think Leigh Brackett is another writer that I would love to see have her own volume in the Library of America. I don't know how likely that is. I don't know if that will ever happen. In my mind, she deserves it, though. And then we have one of my favorite novels of all time is in here, and that's The Shrinking Man by Richard Matheson. A tremendously important science fiction novel that is also a horror novel. You might be familiar with the film, The Incredible Shrinking Man, which I highly recommend if you've never seen it, old 1950s film, which was very close to the novel, actually, because Richard Matheson worked on the film. And it's just a great book. Now, Richard Matheson is a writer who I believe deserves to have his work in the Library of America. I think he should have his own, he should have at least one volume with his stories, and you need at least The Shrinking Man and I Am Legend, I think. And I Am Legend could certainly have been in this volume. I'm kind of surprised it's not. Perhaps it's not because of the whole subject of vampires, even though they were treated in a science fiction way. It was a vampire novel, so perhaps that's why they went with The Shrinking Man, which is straight up science fiction. Again, I think it's also a horror novel, but it is a lot more science fiction. So I'm not surprised they included it, and I'm glad they did, because it's a wonderful book. So this opening volume is fantastic. And they continued that with this one. This is American Science Fiction, 5 Classic Novels from 1956 through 1958, where we have Double Star by Robert A. Heinlein. So we had to have Heinlein in here, I guess. And I guess that's because they, for whatever reason, they don't have plans to put out a Heinlein set in the Library of America. He certainly deserves it, but it might be that they couldn't get the rights to a lot of Heinlein's novels. Who knows? But he's represented in here, as he certainly should be, with Double Star, which is a good book. I don't think it's his best by any stretch of the imagination, but it's good. Then we have Alfred Bester's The Star's My Destination, which is crazy. That book is just a crazy science fiction book, and it's great. I'm a little surprised that they didn't choose The Demolished Man, but I think The Star's My Destination is a better book, frankly. It could be the best book in this set, actually. I think you can make that argument. It's certainly a great book. Then we have A Case of Conscience by James Blish, which is a good science fiction story. Again, good, solid science fiction novel. And I certainly don't think you will ever see James Blish get his own Library of America set. I don't think that'll ever happen. But he's in here with A Case of Conscience. Yeah, I think that deserves to be in here. That's a good book. Then we have Who by Aldous Budrys, which is cool. It's cool that that's in here because I never see that book published anywhere else. I mean, when's the last time you saw a copy of Who by Aldous Budrys? I'm probably not even pronouncing that name right because I've never heard it pronounced. Although I've been aware of that book for ages, I don't even have a copy on its own anymore. You know, I had a paperback copy. Who knows what happened to it? I think it vanished sometime in the 1990s. But we have it in this volume, and I think it's great that it's there. Then we have The Big Time by Fritz Leiber, which I guess, because it's a science fiction set. I was thinking that there are certainly better books that Leiber wrote than The Big Time, but The Big Time is an excellent science fiction novel. I don't think it's the best in this set. I think it's good. Certainly he wrote better, and certainly Leiber is a guy that it would be wonderful to see him get a set from Library of America. Really good writer, Fritz Leiber. You can argue that he's a little inconsistent and has been a little inconsistent over time, but you know, so what? So are a lot of writers. He's still really, really good. So that was the initial set. And I was happy enough to get this. The packaging, the books, the quality of everything, I was super happy to get this. And I was really happy to see that they continued with a second set, which is, of course, 8 classic novels of the 1960s. The 1960s, a very creative and interesting time for science fiction. So, again, really interesting to see the choices that they made for the novels that they published in this set of books. The initial volume, again, it's edited by Gary K. Wolfe. This is 4 classic novels from the 1960s, from 1960 to 66. So this is 1960 to 66. This has The High Crusade by Paul Anderson. It has Way Station by Clifford D. Samac, which is cool. I think that's a good choice. I mean, I'm glad to see Clifford D. Samac in one of these volumes at least. Again, another writer who I would love to see have his own set of books from the Library of America. Maybe that'll happen one day. Maybe. We'll see. But at least we have Way Station in here. Then we have Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. And I'm not surprised at all to see that in here. That seems, when you think about it, yeah, that seems like a given that Flowers for Algernon would be in here. A lot of people love that book. A lot of people who don't even think of that book as being science fiction. It's a science fiction book, clearly. But it's one of those books that I think gained an audience outside of people who just read science fiction for sure. And this is an interesting one, which is really cool to see this in here. And Call Me Conrad, which is a different title for This Immortal by Roger Zelazny. And I do have a paperback copy of This Immortal by Roger Zelazny. But it's awesome to see Zelazny in here. And okay, I'll go with that book for being the one that they included. And then the second volume is from 1968 to 69, because 1968 was a big deal year, apparently, for American science fiction. I think maybe 3 of these books are from 68. Let me see if I'm, yeah. 3 of these books are from 68. And yeah, only the last one is from 1969. So we've got Past Master by R.A. Lafferty is in here. Novel from 1968. Then we've got Picnic on Paradise by Joanna Russ. Did they do, I'm thinking, has Library of America done a set from Joanna Russ? Why am I thinking so? I could be wrong. I should look that up. Nova by Samuel R. Delany. Samuel R. Delany is another writer that I would be surprised if they don't at least try to get him in the Library of America with a set of books. A volume or 2, you would think, would have to show up from Delany, right? I mean, if they're going to publish Ursula K. Le Guin and Ray Bradbury and other science fiction writers, it seems to me that Delany could make it in to the Library of America with more than just Nova, but who knows? Then we've got Jack Vance in here with Amphirio, Jack Vance. That's from 1969. And that closes out these 2 sets of books. What I would love to see is, of course, a volume from the Library of America from the 1970s. How awesome would that be? That would be fantastic. But we'll have to wait and see. I haven't seen anything suggesting that they have plans for that, but I might just not have heard. But the Library of America, fantastic publisher. These are wonderful books. If you just want to, check out some science fiction novels from the 50s and 60s, you can't do better, really, than picking up these 2 box sets of books. It's a really interesting selection of really good science fiction books. Certainly there are other books that I could think of that I would think that would be in here that might even be better than the volumes that they picked. I'm sure you, if you're a science fiction fan, can as well. But I can't really argue that these books are unworthy. All of these books are actually good choices for this set of books. So I will shut up now because I've been going on and on. I will catch you next time.